Om Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Saka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshikendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Kanchapi Namami Vidyai Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsa Rishibhyo Mahatbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopaplavrahita Prajnana Ganaha Pratyagarto Brahmaivahamasmi Om Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrutaduhe Namaha. Pranams everyone. We are in the third chapter. We had finished Sloka 12. Now we are moving into Sloka 13. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ Muchyante sarva kilbishaihi Bhunjante te tvagam papaha Ye pachantyatma karanat Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ Muchyante sarva kilbishaihi Bhunjante te tvagam papaha Ye pachantyatma karanat. In this sloka, Bhagavan is talking about the outcome of the outcome that a Karma Yogi gets, or the phalam for a Karma Yogi, and the outcome for a person who does not practice Karma Yoga. Both are being discussed here. So we know Bhagavan has been talking about Karma Yoga so far. Quick recap. In Sloka number 8, he said, Niyatam Kuru Karma. So he said all the duties must be performed without any likes or dislikes. And then in Sloka number 10, Yajñārtat Karmanaha Anyatra, he talked about the attitude that one must have while performing duties, and that would be like Ishvara Arpana attitude. And he also said that perform all the duties without any attachment, Mukta Sangaha. And Samachara, perform that very properly, diligently. Then in Sloka number 10, Bhagavan had given the Pancha Maha Yajnas, Sahayajña Prajashritva. So these yajnas have been given by the creator, Prajapati, at the beginning of the creation itself. And he had said, by performing these yajnas, Pancha Maha Yajnas, Yeshastu Ishta Kamaduk, this will be the source of all desired objects. So that was in Sloka number 10. Then in Sloka number 11, Devan Bhavayata Anena, we talked about Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha, how only protected Dharma protects us. Then in Ishtan, Sloka number 12, Ishtan Bhogan hi vo Devaha, we talked about the attitude that one must have while performing Kamya Karmas. So the attitude that one must have while performing Kamya Karmas is Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. So everything has to be considered as a Prasada. And there we also talked about how everything that we do has to be shared with others and to be offered to God. Without offering to them, Bhagavan said, Evastenaha, he is verily a thief. That is what Bhagavan had said in the last sloka. Now in this sloka, sloka number 13, Bhagavan is talking about the outcome of for a person who performs Karma Yoga, and the outcome for a person who does not practice Karma Yoga. So first we will see the sloka and then do the vichara. So in the first line, Bhagavan gives the benefit that a Karma Yogi attains, and then in the second line, he talks about the outcome of a karmi, a person who does not do the actions as Karma Yoga. So the first line, Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ muchyante sarvakilbishaihi. Yajña-śhiṣhṭā. Yajña means yajñas. Śhiṣhṭā means leftover. In this case, the sacred remnants. After performing the yajñas, there will be some remnants of it. So that is called as Yajña-śhiṣhṭā. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ. Ashinaha means who take them, who eats them, who partakes them. And what does Bhagavan call them? Santaha. They are the noble ones. So those noble ones who take or who eats them, who partakes the Yajña-śhiṣhṭā, the leftovers of the yajñas. Muchyante sarvakilbishaihi. Muchyante means are freed from. They are freed from where? Kilbishaihi. Sins. Kilbishai means sins. Papam. Is it only specific papam? Bhagavan says sarvakilbishai, from all papams. So those noble ones who partake of the sacred remnants of yajñas are freed from all sins. This is what Bhagavan says in the first line. So Bhagavan is describing the Karma Yogis here. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ, those who partake the sacred remnants of the yajñas. Santaha, those noble ones. What happens to them? Muchyante sarvakilbishai. They are freed from all sins. In other words, those who give the food to others first and then eat are freed from all sins. Those who give food to others first and then eat are freed from all sins. Now the second line, Bunjante te tvagam papaha. Ye pachanti atma karanat. Bunjante means one who just enjoys. One who just enjoys is a bunjante, which means a karmi, one who does not perform Karma Yoga. Te tvagam, which means te tu agam. Te tu papaha agam, which means tu te. Tu means but. Te agam papaha. Those sinful ones. Agam means eat, partake. Agam papaha means they partake sin. So the karmis, bunjante, the karmis, te tu agam papaha. Those sinful ones partake sin. How is Bhagavan describing these karmis? Ye pachanti atma karanat. Ye pachanti. Pachanti means who cook. Ye pachanti, who cook. Atma karanat. Atma karanat means for their own sake. So the karmis who cook for their own sake and do not share it with others are sinful ones, and not only they are sinful already, but they also eat sin. Whatever they cook and they eat, that also they are taking in only papam. They are papis, they are karmis. That's how Bhagavan says. So who are not karma yogis? These karmis who do not contribute anything to the world, those who are selfish people, Bhagavan strongly criticizes them. And here when we say pachanti and Bhagavan says agam papaha, eat, cooking represents all kinds of actions. Cooking for myself means I do not want to share anything with others. If you do not share anything with others, Bhagavan says you are a karmi, you are eating sin, and you are a papi. So Karma Yoga is about sharing. It is not about accumulating. It is not about hoarding. It's not about stashing for oneself. That is the takeaway here. According to our culture and tradition, we should never eat food without giving or without feeding at least one person. This is considered to be very important. That's why Shankaracharya or the Kanchi Shankaracharya had suggested that Pidi Arasi Tittam. So his view is, we cannot call, in those days they used to call a guest at home. Yes, there could be a traveler or somebody, he would be fed first. Only after the guest is fed and the guest takes rest, then the host will start eating. That used to be our practice before. Nowadays we cannot call a guest and feed them regularly. So Shankaracharya had said, at least before cooking, keep some rice separately. And every month or once in 6 months, you can give that rice to some place where it will be cooked and distributed. So Annadanam is considered very important sadhana. And if we do not share, and if we just eat among ourselves, Bhagavan uses a very strong word. He says, you are not eating food. You are only eating concentrated papam. That is what he says here. Now we'll do a vichara. If we come to the first line, Yajña-śhiṣhṭāśhinaḥ. Ashinaha, who takes them, who eats them. Yajña-śhiṣhṭā. Yajña-śhiṣhṭā means, as I said, sacred remnants of yajnas, whatever is remaining of the yajnas. And here yajnas refer to the Pancha Maha Yajnas. Adi Shankara also takes that only. Here when he says Yajna, he takes Pancha Maha Yajnas. So he says, after doing the Pancha Maha Yajnas, whatever is remaining of the outcome, the one who eats them is a Karma Yogi, and he is freed from all sins. We had seen this. One of the responsibilities of a Karma Yogi in the sense a Grihastha person, a Grihastha's responsibility is to feed people of other ashramas. So whether be it a brahmachari or a vanaprastha or a sannyasi, or it could be even other atitis or bhutas, as in animals and plants, it is the Grihastha ashrama's responsibility to feed all these people. So the one who eats after giving all these people, muchyante sarva kilbishai, is freed from all sins. Now why Bhagavan says all sins? Papam, sins, can be divided into two types of papam. One is what we call as deliberate papas. Pramadaha papas. Pramadaha means that because that papa that has resulted because of lack of attention. So one is deliberate, the other one is unintentional. So there are two types, deliberate, unintentional. Now whatever be the papas, it will go away. So whether it is deliberate or unintentional, a Karma Yoga lifestyle, if we are living according to this lifestyle, it will go away. Now the question comes, why not? What's the problem if the papas are there? Why should we get rid of these papas? And the next question is, what are considered papas? Why should we get rid of these papas? And what are considered papas? Anything that is an obstacle to our spiritual growth is a papa. Or rather, what is a papa? A papa is one which will put an obstacle to our spiritual growth. Or rather, we can say, whenever an obstacle to our spiritual growth comes, it is the result of a papa. We want to attend the class, we are not able to attend the class that day. It's an obstacle. Some papa is working. We want to go to a temple, we are not able to go to the temple. We want to meditate, meditation is not happening. Mind is not working. Mind is not being able to, it's not able to calm down. result of a papa. Any spiritual practice, the obstacle that comes in the way of it is a papa or an effect of a papa. So when Bhagavan says Muchyante sarva kilbishai, it means this person is freed from obstacles that are on his path to moksha. Why do we do spiritual practice? Because we want to go out get into the path of moksha. And if any obstacle comes in between, that's all as a result of papa. So Bhagavan says this person is freed from those obstacles. And initially, if you look at it, the obstacles are from outside. It could be other people, situations. They may not allow us to come to classes or listen to Vedanta. It could be other things that could be the cause. But if you see, once we get over that, the biggest obstacle will come, and that is from ourselves, from us itself, our own mind. Our own mind will not cooperate. Our own mind will not allow us to concentrate on what the class is about, will not make us listen to the class properly, will not allow the mind to calm down. The reason being the likes and dislikes. And because of the likes and dislikes, the other issues, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryam, all those things. So here when Bhagavan says removes all papas, he means all the obstacles will be removed. This is the result of doing Pancha Maha Yajnas, partaking the remnants of Pancha Maha Yajnas, which means first give, then take. These Pancha Maha Yajnas will also help us to free us from the 5 types of sins that come out of maintaining the house. As I said, there are some deliberate papas that we do, there are some unintentional papas, unavoidable papas. There are some inadvertent sins that we perform that come out of killing other living beings. For example, we do inadvertently kill insects, bacteria, all those things, mosquitoes and all those things. And Manusmriti says there are 5 types of sins. Kantanam, Peshanam, Chulli, Udakumba, Marjani. These are the 5 types of sins. Panchasuna grihastasya panchayajñāt pranashyati. These 5 types of sins can be overcome by the Pancha Maha Yajnas. Kantanam means the sin that comes out of breaking or crushing things. Then Peshani, because we grind certain things in kitchen. So there's grinding, there are certain things that are getting killed. Chulli means that lighting fire, by lighting fire there are insects that die around it. Then Udakumbi, because we are bringing water, there could be some ants that can fall into the water, then they die and all those things. Marjani means that sweeping the floor, some spider might get killed or whatever. So all the sin that comes out of these 5 things, the Pancha Maha Yajna helps us to overcome those sins. We are not deliberately but unintentionally killing other living beings. So those sins are overcome by performing the Pancha Maha Yajnas. That's on the first line. Now on the second line, Bunjante te tvagam papaha e pachanti atma karanat. So here the meaning of this is, one who does not live according to Karma Yoga will incur sin only. Now when we hear this, immediately we should not think that the people who do not do Karma Yoga will now be living in abject poverty because they are incurring sin, and whoever incurs sin will be living in poverty, they will not have any money and so on and so forth. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that they will not have a comfortable life, they will not have sort of material comforts and all those things. What it means is, it means that they will not come to Vedanta. They will not even hear about Vedanta. They will not hear about moksha. That is the biggest effect of the sin. Who is a papi? A papi is one who is getting more and more away from spiritual knowledge. If a person goes away from spiritual knowledge, you might think, oh, he's still happy. Why do I worry about the spirituality? As if spirituality is, of course, to give you happiness. But spirituality is not about giving you happiness. It is about how to handle sorrows in life. Everybody will get sorrows. Even those papi will have sorrows in life which we may not be able to recognize or see. Yes, what it means here is, a papi means is one who is getting away more and more away from spiritual knowledge. A selfish person goes away from spiritual knowledge. A selfless person comes towards spiritual knowledge. So if Ishvara wants to give a problem to someone, what does he do? If he is a papi, he will naturally get an allergy for Vedanta. That is the biggest obstacle that a person can get. What do we say that a person who does not get a liking for Vedanta, it is the effect of, why do we say that it is actually the effect of sin that a person does not get a liking for Vedanta? The reason is simple. If a person is in sorrow, if someone is in sorrow, that person is in difficulty, and then say the medicine is available, and it can be available nearby. The person may have Bhagavad Gita book within his house, but that book will not be of any use to him. It will not help him overcome his sorrow. Even if I have got a lot of riches and pleasures and all those things, and because of those sensory pleasures, if I am lost in this world, all those material comforts and pleasures that I enjoy, and therefore I do not come to Vedanta, then the scriptures point out that in the very sense pleasures that you seem to enjoy are the papam there. Even money is considered papam. Wealth is considered papam. If I am lost in that wealth, if I am lost in that money, and if I am not going to pursue spirituality, only if I am able to use the wealth and money for spiritual purposes, if I am able to donate, share, do puja, all those activities, perform Pancha Maha Yajnas, then that wealth will become considered a punyam. Because I have an opportunity to do more punyam because of the wealth and the money that I have. So this is how Ishvara punishes. If someone has done a sin, it does not mean that he will be begging for money. It is that he will be continue to remain in samsara. He will not have an opportunity for getting moksha. He will not have an opportunity to get this jnana. He will not know about Vedanta. Or even if he comes to know, he may not have any interest in that. On the other hand, if you see, even poverty is considered punyam. If poverty can lead to self-inquiry, because of poverty, a person can actually spend more time for spiritual purposes, for spirituality or spiritual sadhanas, because he is not interested in actually, or he does not have the necessity to retain the money that he had earned, then poverty itself could be a blessing. So we define punyam as whatever promotes spiritual growth, and we define papam as whatever obstructs spiritual growth. It does not mean that money is papam, money is punyam. It depends on whether the person is able to get that money and use that money. If the person does not have the inclination to use the money for spirituality or for spiritual progress, then that money itself is the result of his papam. If the person is able to use the money for spiritual growth, for sharing and doing all kinds of yajnas, then the money has come as a result of his punya. Whatever promotes spiritual growth is punyam, whatever obstructs spiritual growth is papam. And whatever obstructs spiritual growth is called kilbisham in this sloka. Sarva kilbishaihi, all kinds of papam. And Bhagavan says, Muchyante sarva kilbishai. He is freed from all these papams. And why we say Vedanta Atmajnana? Without Atmajnana, one can never attain moksha. In Purusha Suktam, we have Nanyaf Panta Ayanaya Vidyate. Nanyaf Panta Ayanaya Vidyate. Without this, there is no other go, there is no other option. Then the scriptures also point out that even though Atmajnanam alone can liberate, only Atmajnana can give this person moksha, but Atmajnanam itself can take place only when the mind is pure. Without having that qualification of mental purity, Atmajnana is never possible. And how do we get this mental purity? The Chitta Shuddhi, Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the purifier. And without purification, nothing can sustain. That's why even, for example, when temples are built, before we install the murti, there are so many rituals purifying that place. And even before certain things, they will do first punya vachanam before any kind of yajnas at home also. They will first do the purifier. Unless the place is purified, the knowledge can not sustain. Any effect or anything that you do will not sustain. Similarly, when I want to study Vedas being a sacred literature, and I want to keep the Vedas in my mind, and therefore it cannot be done unless I purify myself. And that is why before starting any Vedic study, they got a series of rituals called Upanayanam. Upanayanam ceremony. What is this Upanayanam ceremony? Upanayanam ceremony is cleaning the body, cleaning the mind to install the Veda mantras. Without purification, if we install the Veda mantras, instead of purifying the person, it will pollute. And I will also pollute the Vedas by that. That is why they say Upanayanam is important for Vedic chanting. There are people who ask, who can chant the Vedas? Who cannot chant the Vedas? Why do you say only men can learn the Vedas? Why can't the ladies cannot learn? They ask all these umpteen questions. The criteria is not men or women. The idea is, even if you are a Brahmana, you cannot learn the Vedas if you have not gone through the purification process called the Upanayana Samskara. If a person has not gone through this Upanayana, he is not supposed to chant. So Vedas are not taught until the person gets the Upanayana. Samskaram itself means purification. It's a purificatory process. In our culture, as I said, anything we do, we must purify. And this is true everywhere, right? I mean, even for, if you want to paint a wall, for example, what do we do first? We will have to use normally, if you are supposed doing properly, they will take the sandpaper to remove the previous paints and all those things, purify it, clean it up, and thereafter only they will paint. Similarly, Atma Jnana can come only if the mind is scrubbed. It needs to be scrubbed of what? Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsaryam, all those evils in the mind have to be purified. And we cannot use that local sandpaper, we will have to use the Karma Yoga sandpaper. So Karma Yoga is a necessary process or a necessary sadhana for purifying the mind. And a Karma Yogi or a spiritual seeker is interested only in this inner purification. He is not bothered about material prosperity. By doing Karma Yoga, by following Karma Yoga, one may get material prosperity or may not. It does not bother that spiritual seeker. And there could be always people who will ridicule, that you are a foolish person, you are trying to follow the values of life, all these things will not fetch you material prosperity, you will not gain comforts of life, you will be seen as a loser. Your life of contribution, your life of cooperation, sharing, all these things, it doesn't help. Only if you are a consumer, you are able to compete and you are able to accumulate, you are seen as a winner. That's how people will say. But the person must have the conviction that he is following dharma, that he is following the values of life. People will always say, you do not know how to earn, how to survive. And they will say, Tamil, they will say, unakku pazhaikka theriyala. Actually, it's a nice phrase to say, you don't know how to be a little corrupt. And they will say, people will call you as a simpleton, and they will say, you have lost all opportunities to lead a life of luxury. People will not appreciate the Karma Yoga way of life. But again, as I said, even to appreciate that way of life, Karma Yoga way of life, one must have punya to see the value of Karma Yoga. The whole world may consider him a failure, because the whole world's definition of success is material prosperity only. And success is defined in terms of how much of wealth you have, how many properties you have. Do you have a house in India, there, Singapore, whatever? Do you have a car at home? Do you have helper? How much jewelry you have? What kind of lifestyle do you live? Do you go for frequent holidays? How much can you spend for your family's weddings, festivals? Are you able to invite a lot of people, give them a lot of gifts? That is how success is defined in today's world in terms of material wealth and prosperity. Whereas for a Karma Yogi, he does not consider material prosperity as success. Not that he rejects them. Not that a Karma Yogi rejects material prosperity, but he does not compare. He does not compete. It may come, it may not come. His focus is only on inner purification. But unfortunately, the world defines failure only from the standpoint of material accomplishment and non-accomplishment. You start a business, you get profit, you are immediately recognized, you are immediately praised, you are considered a success. The person makes a loss, his company folds up, then he will consider a failure. In the case of Karma Yoga, it doesn't matter. If the person has started a business, it's gone through profit, it's gone through loss, doesn't matter. If the inner purification takes place, whether you earn profit through the business or loss through the business, if inner purification takes place, it is considered a success. We remember that Sloka 40 in second chapter. Nehabhi kramano shausti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Very important sloka. Material prosperity is only the secondary result. It may come, it may not come. The primary result is chitta shuddhi, chitta shodakam. Mukti Sadhakam. In Upadesha Sara of Ramana Maharishi, the third sloka, Ishvarapitam Nechaya Kritam Chitta Shodhakam Mukti Sadhakam. The Chitta Shodhakam alone is the Mukti Sadhakam. If we dedicate our life to Ishvara, and if we consider material prosperity as subservient to spiritual growth, nobody is saying don't yearn. It is a question of where my priorities are. If I consider material prosperity as subservient to spiritual growth, then the Karma Yoga will lead to mental purity. And the mental purity will promote Mukti Sadhakam. Chitta Shodhakam, Mukti Sadhakam. The primary obstruction of spirituality, what is the primary obstruction of spirituality is moha, delusion, or we can say avivekaha. We know Viveka, Vairagya are the qualifications needed for, in fact, Viveka is the first qualification needed for spiritual progress. What we are suffering from is aviveka, delusion, moha. What do we mean by delusion here? The delusion that we have here is seeing the external world as a cause of happiness or even a cause of unhappiness. That is delusion. According to Vedanta, the external world is neither a source of happiness nor a source of unhappiness. We've given multiple examples. We see, if say for example, if a particular music is a source of happiness, then whenever that music is played, then all the family members must be happy. But we see that once the music is played, maybe the teenager is very happy to listen to that particular kind of music. Maybe it's because noisy, loud, pop, whatever. And that person enjoys, dances and all those things. But the very same music, when the parents listen to, they may be interested only in Carnatic music or whatever. And for them, that music is not palatable. Now, music is the source of happiness or unhappiness? It cannot be either. So, extending this same principle, Vedanta says, the world is neither Sukha Hetuhu nor is the world Dukkha Hetuhu. As long as we are finding fault with the world, and as long as we are trying to change the world to improve our happiness, we are in delusion. We are trying to change the external situation as much as possible to make ourselves happy. There will be a limitation. We cannot do much. And as long as we think that we can or we must change the external world for our happiness, we are living in delusion. It is my attitude, my expectation towards the world which determines sorrow or happiness. So what is required is not the change in the world, but a change in my attitude. And how can this attitudinal change be brought about? Any perspective change can be brought about only by knowledge. So instead of finding fault with the world, this situation is not good, therefore I am unhappy. This person is not good, that's why I am unhappy. I don't have this and therefore I am unhappy. Instead of that, if we turn towards knowledge, then we become a spiritual seeker. And whatever helps this misconception, this delusion, which makes me go after this world, which makes me go after this, chase this world for happiness, is called moha. Shankaracharya had written a work called Bhajagovindam, which was called as Moha Mudgaraha. Mudgaraha means hammer. In Valakai. Moha mudgaraha means a work which will hammer and destroy your delusion. Bhajagovindam is a fantastic text to come out of delusion. There Shankaracharya, what he does is he takes up each thing, every one he takes and he analyzes them and he destroys them. So for example, destroys the reason. So he says whether money gives you happiness. He analyzes and then say no, it doesn't. And then he says whether the family members are giving happiness. He analyzes and then says no. Yavad vitto parjana saktah stavan nija parivaro raktah paschat jivati jara jara dehe vartam kopina prichati gehe. It says, as long as a man is fit and he is able to support his family by earning wealth, all those family members around him will show affection. But no one will care for him, even have a word with him when his body becomes invalid and he is actually tottering due to old age. All family members are wonderful as long as you are a productive member in the family. The moment you are retired, the attitude changes. Whatever extra services that we had got before will be gone. Now we must help ourselves. So in Bhajagovindam, Shankaracharya takes up everything. What is family? What is money? What is life? And he removes delusion with regard to each thing. Now, that when we read, we will understand. But how to actually make sure that it is ingrained, that delusion is totally removed from us? The only way that we can remove the delusion totally away is by following Karma Yoga. Reading it will give you momentary knowledge. But to actually get that delusion away from the system totally, that can be done only by performing Karma Yoga. So this is the essence of this sloka. To summarize this, first, food or whatever or everything that one has must be shared. That is the first point. And it must be given to others first before we consume. Pancha Maha Yajnas must be performed. This is the first point, this shloka, number 1. Number 2, why do we perform? What helps us in doing when we do Pancha Maha Yajnas? It also frees us from the 5 types of sins that we unintentionally get while maintaining the house. Kantanam, Peshanam, Churli, Udakambam, Marjani. All these 5 types of sins. Bhagavan says Karma Yoga frees us from all types of sins. Where sin is considered to be anything that is an obstacle to my spiritual progress. So by performing Karma Yoga, one gets into the path of Jnana and Moksha. What is sin? Sin is, or Papa is anything that obstructs spiritual progress. What is Punya? Punya is anything that supports my spiritual progress. So which means Papa does not mean that a person will suffer from poverty. He could be very rich and materially successful also. Punya does not mean that the person will be rich and wealthy. So poverty is not an indication of Papa. Wealth is not an indication of Punya. It has to be clearly remembered, understood. Because we look at other people and say, he is doing well. How can he be doing well? Where is this question of Papa or Punya? We do not understand that. That's because we do not understand what is Papa and what is Punya. Next point is, when one does Karma Yoga, one gets mentally purified. Mental purity or Chitta Shuddhi is a necessary condition for acquiring Jnana. This is another takeaway. The next takeaway that we have to understand, Seventh one, Karma Yoga may or may not give us material success. It may give us material success, it may not give us material success. But as a spiritual seeker, one must be interested only in spiritual progress. And there is no question of failure if one performs Karma Yoga, if this, because we saw 240, Neha Bhikramano Shosti, Pratyavayo na Vidyate. Then a person who cooks for himself and eats without sharing, he is only eating sin. What does that mean? The effect of eating sin is he will be in samsara always. He will not be interested in Vedanta. He may listen to Vedanta, but he will get bored. He will find that he will say, this is not for me. And he will continue to remain in samsara. It is important to share and eat, especially food. And in fact, Shastras do not allow us to sell food. Food must not be sold. Then we also saw that the primary obstruction to spiritual progress is moha, delusion, avivekaha. Delusion that the world is the source of happiness, the world is the source of my sorrow. That is the delusion. And only Karma Yoga will help the person to acquire this viveka and remove this delusion. And through that one gets Chitta Shodhakam, and then it becomes Mukti Sadhakam. The delusion also will lead to the belief that the world, the people, the situation, my possessions are the cause for me to be happy. These are the causes for me to be happy. And therefore what happens is our attachment towards them also increases. We think we will be unhappy without the other person. We will be unhappy without that particular object, possession, that particular house, a particular car, that particular whatever dress, jewelry, whatever, or that particular situation. I cannot go back to India, I cannot be in Singapore, or I have to be in Singapore, whatever, that attachment towards a place, situation. What will Karma Yoga do? Karma Yoga will help us give Vairagya. To get more Vairagya, if we read Bhajagovindam itself, we will understand them. Or to understand the nature of all relations of the world, one must read Bhajagovindam. Finally, if Ishvara wants to punish someone, what he does is he gives them wealth, so that this person actually spends more and more time in actually acquiring and retaining the wealth, which will make them deluded, so that they will neither have the interest nor have the time for moksha. A lot of people say, I don't have the time. That's because I'm more interested in other issues which are for my material progress. As if without getting material progress, I will not be able to get spiritual progress. And material progress is defined by the society. I may get whatever I want, but as long as in the social circle that I am in, if I am considered to be one of the lower strata, then I consider myself a failure. And it depends on what the social circle that I decide for myself. And I decide within this social circle, I am actually at a lower strata, and therefore I am a failure. That is what delusion does. So these are the takeaways from this particular Sloka number 30. Now we will go to Sloka number 14. Annad bhavati bhutani Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavah yajñād bhavati parjanyah yajña karma samudbhavah. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavah yajñād bhavati parjanyah yajña karma samudbhavah. So Karma Yoga is the first step to moksha. That has been said already. Now in the next 3 shlokas, Bhagavan is going to say that only if a person lives by Karma Yoga, the world will be in harmony. There will be harmony in the creation only if we follow Karma Yoga. In other words, Karma Yoga is the reason or is necessary for the world to be in harmony. Jagat Chakra Pravartaka Hetu Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the reason for the cycle of creation to be in harmony. Jagat Chakra means cycle of creation. So if we see a society is in harmony, if a society is peaceful, then Karma Yoga should have been in practice there. That is what it means. Or wherever there is no Karma Yoga, the society will be in shambles. The society will break down. That's what Shastras mean when it says Jagat Chakra Pravarta Hetu Karma Yoga. Now we'll see how this is explained in these shlokas. So Bhagavan here is going to give 5 points, and each one of them is dependent on another to make a cycle. Before we go to shloka, we will see what Bhagavan wants to say here, or Bhagavan says here. Bhagavan says the stula sharira, the body of all jivarasis, our physical body, are all dependent on annam, food. There is no doubt about that. All our physical body, we require food to nourish this body. Now, for the food itself is dependent on rains. The grains or the paddy fields require water. They require water that comes from rains. There cannot be any doubt on this too. Both of these things can be verified through our own experience. Where there is no rain, we will say there is famine. And because of famine, there is no grains, which means there are no good food to eat. Now the third step, the next step, here we will have to take the help of Shastras. We will require Shraddha. What Bhagavan says, we have not experienced it, but we will have to go through. We will have to have the Shraddha to understand this. Bhagavan says the rains are dependent on yajñas. In other words, punya. Punya means what? Adrishtam. What we call as adrishtam is punyam. When we say avanukku adrishtame illa, it means what? He does not have punya. We use this colloquially without even understanding. Adrishtam does not mean luck. Adrishtam means punyam. It is called adrishtam. Sometimes it is also called apurvam. So the rain is dependent on something that is not visible to our eyes. Adrishtam means something that is not visible. So this is the third step. So the rains are dependent on punyam or adrishtam or apurvam. So now we have to understand this clearly. The body depends on annam. The annam itself is dependent on rains. The rains are dependent on punyam or apurvam. Now, the fourth step is apurvam is dependent on karma. Rather, which means punyam can come out of only actions. Every action creates punya or papa. So for punyam to be created, you need action. So the fifth step, the actions or karma yoga, we can say, is the one that will help in creating the punya. And the actions itself to be performed, one requires body to perform actions. So now the cycle is complete, if you now see. So the body is dependent on annam is dependent on rains are dependent on punyam is dependent on karma, and karma is dependent on body. So the cycle gets complete. So again we can say the body is dependent on annam and so on. So this Jagat Chakram is established on karma or the Karma Yoga, which creates the punya. That is the essence of this sloka. As I said, the first 2 steps are easy to understand because we know that. But we need to see how we have to understand from the 3rd step. The first 2 steps, body is dependent on food is dependent on rains, that's fine. Now the rains are dependent on apurvam or punyam. This is where we have to understand. So if we have to understand punyam in scientific language, remember punyam or adrishtam means the cosmic balance. If in scientific language, it's called as cosmic balance or harmony. Only when there is harmony in nature, only when there is a balance in nature, the rain will come at appropriate time. Because the seasons are indicative of natural harmony. The seasons are always indicative of natural harmony. In our tradition, we always take the rains as a acid test for universal balance, ecological balance and all those things. In those days, the rain comes on time, we say everything is perfect. The world and the ecological balance is there. It's in harmony. Now, how does this punya depend on actions? And more on this cycle, we will see it in the next class. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, we will see in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.